Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the BMWBLOG Podcast. This is episode 56, and we are joined by James Bachici and Horatiu, and we're going to talk about some interesting topics. James's drive of his own M3 CS and the video he made about that. We're going to talk a little bit about the 0 to 60 time for the M5 CS, and then Horatiu might have some interesting stuff to tell us after that. So, hey, James, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, hey, thanks for having me. Always a pleasure.
Yeah, guys, you should definitely stay till the end. We have a few things to share. We always try to tease the good stuff towards the end, so make sure you listen to us or you watch us on YouTube, either or.
That's right. That's how we force you to watch the whole thing.
Pretty much.
Get our claws in you in the beginning.
And don't cheat. Don't scrub to the end, okay? Don't cheat.
Yeah, that's not fair.
Doesn't count.
All right, James, so... We put up your M3 CS video a couple of weeks ago, and there's been a lot of comments on that video. It's insane how many people have been commenting on. It's a great video, and I think that's what people appreciate. I was a little reluctant, seeing a 29 minutes video. I was like, sounds like a Netflix episode. People are gonna be really watching this, but I was kind of surprised to actually see that people do watch some sort of long form content, because I've always thought that people, kind of drop after, 3-5 minutes on YouTube, but I was pleasantly surprised.
Well, they do when I'm talking.
Behave. Stop it. That's not true. No, I was too. I was very happy as well. We had talked about potentially breaking it down into maybe half so we can do part 1 and part 2, but
yeah,
I was also
from a money perspective, on our end, that would have made sense. But since we don't care about the monetary,
we don't care about that. We are artists.
We wanted to just So we're not like HBO and Game of Thrones, right? Showing one episode per week. We just give it all away.
Exactly. We didn't want to break the whole storytelling aspect of it. It was an experience, and obviously it's been in the works since I basically picked up the car back in 2019. It was
some of the footage goes as far back as 19.
Yeah. Actually,
okay.
The bit where I go through the base and the competition, and I cut to the CS, and I go, hey, we're gonna talk about the differences between the base, the competition, and the CS. That drone shot that's actually inside of BMW Seattle, where I come down, that was the car sitting on the M display. That is like right then and there. That's super fresh. So that was late April 2019. I picked up the car on Cinco de Mayo 2019. So it was a really good day.
I can imagine, yeah.
Yep. And I'm really happy, to your point, folks have responded well to the video, and lots of comments. Lots of questions. People have not seen
the video. It's on our YouTube channel and also on James Bachici's channel, so you can watch it on either one of them. It's about the M3 CS. He owns one, and he documented his journey basically since he purchased the car. And it's not just the imagery that's and the footage is really good. It's just the information. So if you're looking for an M3 or M4 CS, you'll find it to be quite useful. And I guess that was my next question. How did you come about setting up the timeline or the storyline? Did you think about that from the beginning, or you just
So from the very beginning, I knew that I had previously owned a base F80 M3, the mineral white one, the M Chief 1.0, if you will, and that inspired me to do a long-term review. A lot of folks do long-term reviews, but I don't want to strap a GoPro to the windshield and just kind of tell you what my thoughts are and then end it there. I wanted to sort of stretch it out over a long period of time, because opinions and thoughts and feelings change about anything that we own or we have for however long. So I wanted to stretch it out and put together a cohesive sort of journey of what it was like to pick up the car, to live with it. You have a honeymoon phase. There's everyday driving, there's track driving in the review. There's little quirks and things that you pick up by just living with the car for over 2 years. And of course, I am a fan of like cinematography, so I try to capture this story visually as well as in the script. So it should serve as a good primer base and sort of informative piece for anyone that either owns an M3 CS and doesn't know all the things about it. Literally, someone a couple of days ago on Instagram on my M Chief account messaged me and asked, hey, do you know of any cool M clubs on the East Coast? I'm like, no, I'm on the West Coast. I live in Washington State. I don't know, but here's a Facebook page that you can join up. Also, here's a video that I put out a couple weeks ago that, you know, should give you a good sort of primer on what the M3 CS is all about. And he responded back with, funny, you should link that. I actually watched that last night. I didn't know that was you. So that was kind of nice. But yeah, it's a video that should prime people, you know, that are interested in the M3 CS, either as a potential car that they want to pick up. I mean, obviously they're all used at this point. They only were produced in 2018. But also there's info there that compares the M3 CS to the M4 CS, because there are some differences between the two models. Some, you know, the M4 CS has certain things that the M3 CS doesn't have, and vice versa, like those delicious OLED brake lights. Like I really, really like those brake lights, and I'm not too thrilled that the M3 CS doesn't have them. But anyway,
yeah.
I won't go.
I actually wonder why they put it only on the M4.
The M4 and the M4 CS and the M4 GTS. I mean,
GTS, yeah, both.
God,
Yeah. I just wonder why
nice.
they did that.
I'll tell you why: to make people like me sad and depressed.
It's got to be a reason behind it. Let me try to find out. Actually,
Yeah, dig into that. But yeah, I'm really happy that was. I mean, you know how long I've been working on the video, and so I'm super thrilled and happy, and you know, elated that folks have responded so well to the video, because it's been definitely a labor of love and passion and a lot of time, like a lot of time. Like when I finished it and I exported it and I was ready to upload it, I just did a right-click investigate on the folder that had all the footage, and there were like over 700 gigs of
footage.
Yeah, footage. My computer was like, are you serious right now? Are you kidding me right now? So I was really happy to like archive that and be like, all right, we're done here.
Terabyte.
See, so that's the
one folder.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the funny part about, you know, some of those videos, right? So sometimes we spend a lot of time on producing a video, or, you know, putting one together. You spend all that time and, you know, all that work, and then you get no recognition, really, like no views, no anything like that. And then you create a, I don't know, silly video, no high quality, nothing really, you know, that you should watch, and then they get like 1 million views. We have actually one on the channel with an X6 Vanta Black. Basically, it's like a 30 seconds vertical footage, not really good, like 320p, because it was shot for Instagram and then reshared, you know, and basically that's got like 1 million views. Now, granted, it's an interesting topic, but still, you know, sometimes the amount of time that we spend on creating some piece of content doesn't get the love that we hope sometimes.
That's true. But personally, like it's really nice to have it do well, and I am super appreciative of everyone that, you know, has taken the time to watch and obviously comment. But like as a I'm gonna say amateur videographer, like whether it did well or not, I still would have poured the same amount of effort into it, because that will, in, you know, my mind, at least digitally speaking, will live forever. It's always something that whether I keep the M3 CS forever or not, I can always like point my finger at it and go, yep, I had that, I made that video, and it was a blast. And it's something that I could always look back on, you know, when I'm like 94 years old and can't find my slippers. But yeah, I mean, and that's also like the age old sort of like, it's not quantity over quality, but it's something like that. It's what's his name? Paul Hollywood. Great British Baking Show. He goes, what do you go? Style over substance. You know, it's balancing that artistic sort of like vision that you have, that you want to translate from your mind into like video format with useful information that people can like actually use, you know, like
it's kind of the opposite of BMW, functional over form, you know. That's the funny thing. So you mentioned, that you might not keep that car. Any reason why you're thinking about ever selling that car? Because I wouldn't.
I know. But then Nico, does a little video on an M5 CS. Yeah, no, you did. He does a video on the M5 CS, and I go, that's kind of nice.
So hold on. Before we jump to the M5 CS, that's going to take quite some time.
Yeah.
Do you mind sharing how much you paid for the car, or maybe like a ballpark? And the reason for that is I'm trying to figure out if the prices have gone up since you bought that car, because we've seen a crazy amount of money being paid lately for not even vintage BMW, just, special cars. And I wonder if the M3 CS went up in price.
Yeah, let me actually bring up the video here, because what happened was...
Because you bought it used, right? So
no, it was brand new.
Oh, well, yours was brand new. Wow.
Yeah, it was... Okay, then. All right, let's not go that. The car was brand new, and
here I am driving an i3, and I'm doing something wrong.
Don't do that. That's not the only car you have. Don't let our listeners and our viewers.
You don't drive the other car.
Believe that. Don't listeners and viewers don't for one second think that that's all Horatiu has is just an i3.
It's the one that I drive. I don't know why, but that's the one that I always reach for, and sometimes I even forget that I have the 1M.
Well, it's because you live in Chicago, and the 1M is brutal.
It is brutal. I'm afraid every single time I leave the house that I'm going to come back with no wheels. Honestly, just like potholes are actually. So speaking of, like, a side note till you find the price.
Yeah.
So the other day, brand new i3. I mean, brand new. It's at least a few months old. I already got a flat tire like a few months ago. Fine, I replaced that. It happens with the i3. And then the same tire, the rear tire, I get a flat tire again. And when I go to kind of try to repair it, I pull out a couple of nails out of it. They were this big. I'm not exaggerating. I took a video of it. I mean, this big, 2 of them. And the tire was gone, like $230 thrown away. And I'm like how, where, like why would somebody leave those nails on the road? Like, it doesn't make any sense.
I know.
So that was not a cheap tire, but I think a Michelin PS4S probably would be more expensive.
Well, I mean, the i3's tires are bespoke, right? Because it's that like really specific size.
There's only one brand that makes them, really.
Yeah,
narrow,
size
yeah.
is an oddball. It's like really tall and really skinny. Like there's no other car that uses that size. So you have to get a bespoke. It's like a bespoke tire. So that's why they're expensive. But
yeah, very expensive. I think $220-$30 with mounting and all of that.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Like, thanks, Chicago.
So
that's a problem with the 1M. It's always something, It's either you park the car and somebody dings the car, or it scratches, you just never know here. So I'm always so afraid of driving that car. And then if I want to enjoy the car, it's like bumper to bumper. I'm like, what am I doing?
You gotta move out of the city, man. You gotta get to some nice windy roads.
Yeah, I gotta talk to my boss to give me some time off. That's the next on my list.
Right.
We haven't had a real time off in like forever, but anyway.
Yeah. I feel really bad for you. Once again, I feel really bad for you.
Do not look at Instagram.
Yeah, I'm gonna fire up Instagram, and you're gonna be like, "Oh, guys, I'm in Sao Paulo. Sorry."
It does look cool. All right, so let's do another side note, so people can have an idea. So if you look at our Instagrams, even mine or like Nico, sometimes it looks like some cool locations and all of that. But that's like out of the 24 hours in that day, I would say that's really like about an hour for me. When I try to kind of take those cool shots, and post them there, and people think that I'm on vacation, but when I was in Pebble Beach right now, I get there on Thursday. I drive, from San Francisco to Monterey. I get there like 2 p.m. I go around and I shoot the car a little bit. Then I go to dinner because I have to eat something and meet the BMW guys and, talk shop. And then the next day I start at 8 o'clock and go from, one place to another. Then go back to the hotel, change, then go shoot another car because I have another car. And then by the time that the dinner came, I was like, I'm tired. Now I have to go back to the hotel to kind of download the photos and the footage because I want to be the first one to post it. That's the whole idea, And then I'm like till 2 a.m.
Just stop. Just stop right there. Do not.
And the next day, it's Saturday. Now I get up again to go to another car show.
You poor thing.
And then I see some cool cars. But then again, I'm working the whole day. And then I go back.
Yeah.
And then I go to the concourse on Sunday.
Yeah.
Wake up early, get there. Hold on. I'm not done. And then I'm done with the concourse, like, I don't know, 4 p.m. Take this shuttle bus. It takes forever to get to your car. I get to my car like 5. Now I have to go to the hotel, unpack, and drive to the airport in San Francisco and take a red eye to get home.
Here's what I want to do. I want to know. I want to know if everyone that's watching this video on YouTube or if anyone that's listening on the podcast, how many people would want to do what Horatiu just outlined.
It's just fun to do it once. Yeah, Nico, you know how it is.
Nico's got
to do it once, but
sure.
Here's what I will say. I will say you're not wrong in that it is much, much, much more work than people think it is.
I agree.
However, that said, it's never lost on me on any press trip, no matter how tiring it is or how because you're only at the actual location that you're at for a day. There's 2 days of travel. It is much more work than it, and far less glamorous than it looks. But every time I have to remind myself that I have had some really crappy jobs, and the worst day on a press trip with a car company is better than the best day at most other jobs. Like, I have to remind myself that. I mean, it is definitely a very, very, very cool.
It's also fair
experience.
to say that we kind of push ourselves a little bit more than other people that might go on those press trips. There are some they do kind of the same thing we do, but we definitely try to get as much content as possible because it's a privilege to be there, and we kind of treat it that way. So we don't take it for granted at all. And every single one that we go, we work hard. Not necessarily to prove BMW anything, but really because we need the content. We're focused on just a few brands, and we need to produce that content. So for us, it's important to do as much as possible, and that's kind of why I do that. That's why Nico does it too, and it's not always probably the best approach, especially auto show. Sometimes I will go with Nico, and we wouldn't even have time to have lunch, just because we're trying to capture so much. But then again, there are some cool things that we've experienced that even people with money might not be able to experience that, and it's kind of cool, and it's a cool thing to do. So.
I was going to say, you and Nico, can't include
but
me.
We do
in
sometimes
that
the job of 5, So I mean, especially at those events, we do the job of 5 because we try to capture so many things for all the channels. We try to do social and do videos and do content
and there's a certain bar, right? There's a certain quality bar that that you're there and you want to make sure
we try, and sometimes we do full short sometimes on quality and certain things because like for example, there was a video that I did and I didn't check the microphone, and it was just mono and it wasn't stereo. So I'm like, things like that we don't really have the time. People think at those events you have the time to set up, but you really don't. They're so packed. And you need to move fast. You need to be ready with the equipment. You need to be charged all the time. Like, it is, So anyway, let's just go back to the M3 CS.
It's like, when you're on track, they stick you in the car, and you have like 45 seconds to get your GoPro mounted before the lead car is off, and you gotta move.
Exactly.
You don't have time. It's not like.
And you don't want to slow down anybody else because some people really they're there to just drive, not film anything. So you don't want to be that guy that kind of and sometimes they only have like a certain amount of time, like on track too. So you need to move fast.
Yeah, I mean, I had the whole day at the Ridge Motorsports track, and it was just me and a couple of my close friends that I've recruited to help me shoot the M3 CS track footage. And I had marked a bunch of cameras and had placed or figured where I'd place them and how I'd frame everything. And even so, I still didn't capture what I wanted and what I had envisioned in my master plan. So being told that you have 45 seconds to grab, it's hard. It is hard, and I don't want to take away from that, but I also want to make sure that I represent the people that are listening and go, please don't tell me how difficult it is to go to Pebble Beach.
Nico, listen to this guy. He had the whole day like on the track, and you had 30 minutes to do the 0 to 60 on M5 CS with no margin for error.
And I was only allowed 3 launches by BMW, and on my last one, there was literally a plane doing its pre-flight checks 200 feet from me, getting ready to take off, and I have the guy in the radio going, you have to go right now. Like, you have to go right now.
That's
your
awesome.
Last chance. And I was like, oh my God, it better work.
That's awesome and stressful at the same time.
Yeah.
I got the numbers.
All right, so tell me.
All right, so the M3 CS retailed or manufacturer retail suggested price is $98,250.
Ooh,
It was expensive.
So it was expensive. It was quite a lot. And of course, back in 2018, early 2019, a lot of folks, that was, the main subject matter to talk about, the CS line of cars that BMW's put out. Like, is it worth so much money more over the base? When the base M3 was 63, 64 grand with no options, no nothing. It was like your absolute bare bones F80 or F82. San Marino Blue is $550 extra. The black and Silverstone bicolor full leather is included in the price, and that's how all M3 CSs came. You don't get to pick any interior colors; they're all black with Silverstone. Sure. The exact package was $2,600, which again you can't take off, at least not in North America. It was just on there. The differences on my car versus a base car, let's say a base CS, is that I had the M carbon ceramic brakes added, which is a lot. That was $8,150. On top of the 98, and the M Performance titanium exhaust, which also added $4,935. Plus, I wanted the carbon fiber exhaust tips because M Performance exhaust has to have the carbon tips. That was $1,500 extra.
Baller.
So no, it's not like that. And so all up, that came to
representing the people here. That's all.
I'm just representing the people. Destination charge $995. Everything all up. So a base CS is $98,000 and change, and this one came out to $116,980. So $117,000. Save $20, which was serendipitous for me because M Chief, Master Chief 117, 117. I was like, it was meant to be. So
there you go. See? That's all the justification you need.
Yeah, that's it. Just babe. Yeah. See? Okay. Well, it was meant to be. So there you go.
The price basically. I had to.
I don't want to.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
I don't want to. But
yeah, it was quite a lot, and that was one of the big talking points when the car first came out. Is like, does the price justify the updates of what BMW has done to the car? Is when a base could be had for 63, 64, comp was like, I don't know, 70, 72, 75 ish, and here comes the CS at 98, which is a lot more. And if you put all the options, 116, 117.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So how much you're selling right now? Do you see any used ones for?
I am not finding any just yet. I think I saw one a couple weeks ago that was, I think, sub 10K miles, going for 85, 87.
Okay. So.
If
they're going to go up in price or not.
How many did they make?
Officially on paper, BMW said 1,200 units of the M3 CS. Global.
Okay.
The U.S. market got about 500.
Okay. Wow.
What really ended up actually, it is a low number. It is. I call this out in the review, in the video that I put out, is this was the first CS that BMW M had put out in, forever, right?
Yeah. Was it the 3.0? Was that
the 3.0 was the granddaddy, and they, let's say BMW marketing could have done a little better job at sort of outlining the differences between the base, the competition, and the CS, and the heritage and the history behind it, and the fact that there's only so many in the world. To kind of bring some of that magic and some of that showmanship, let's say, to justify some of that cost. I didn't see any of that. I've seen one or two little quick 30-second videos. There was like the M3 CS, looking cool. Okay. People didn't really know that there were only 500 coming to the U.S.
Right.
So part of that is lost. I actually went to a couple of Cars and Coffees, and I've had a couple of folks come up and like, what does the CS stand for? Like, is this like a special Euro version, like a competition? Like, no, it's a full-fledged car that BMW M manufactured and sent out, all throughout the world in various regions. Oh, I didn't even know. Like, yeah, let me talk to you about it. And then I couldn't stop. They were still there 47 minutes later. But there's now it's different, right? Now you have the M3 CS, the M4 CS, then the M2 CS came out and people fell in love, and it's doing, incredibly well. Yeah. And now we have the M5 CS. So it's very clear that BMW has a a roadmap of sorts where now the CS line is like a staple within the lineup or product portfolio of what a potential customer can tap into. You want a base, right. You want a competition, with all-wheel drive, you want the CS, maybe who knows, we'll get a CSL in the future. You have these like different flavors, right?
Another thing that I think, I was working at BMWBLOG when the CS came out, the M3 CS and the M4 CS, and I didn't get to drive. I have never driven one. And it seemed like the media coverage on it was pretty small. There wasn't a lot of like media hype around it. Like, as you were saying, like BMW didn't hype it, but they also didn't allow the media to do that job for them. Mm-hmm. Like with the M2 CS, they've allowed so many publications to drive it, and everyone's raving about it. So it's gaining this like incredible status because no one who drives it has a bad thing to say about it. You have people that even were critical of the standard M2 saying that the CS is sensational, and the same goes for the M5 CS. So I feel like if maybe they had more of a media presence around the M3 CS, people would have felt differently about it or known. And that's really how people know about these cars, right? Is they read Car and Driver magazine or Road Track or BMW Blog, of course. And we didn't really get that kind of coverage for it.
I don't think there was ever a US launch event. So if I remember correctly, I actually flew to Germany. I was invited by BMW Germany, and I flew there to drive the M3 CS. Basically, it was still, even there for their standards, it was a kind of small event. I landed. We did a little bit of it wasn't even track time. It was really, they have this training facility, Maizak, which is more like for their academy and schools. And it's really an old airfield. And it's kind of where they set up a track, to put it that way. And we drove there for a little bit, maybe 30 minutes, not even more than that. And then we took the car onto some back roads, and it was pretty fun, but it wasn't a huge event on any, special track. Like, with the M3 and M4, I went to Portimao, and that was a, real track event. So I don't think they hyped up the car even there that much, and there was definitely no US event. I don't know how many cars went into the press fleet and what was available, but that's always that's always the thing, with limited cars, if they can get any to go into the press fleet, and how many, because now they have to send them from region to region. So maybe that's why. But I also think that that's my opinion. I don't know for a fact, but I'm assuming they were kind of surprised by the popularity of the CS model. So they probably, when the M2 CS came out, they said, well, this is, people love the CS, might as well do something more than last time.
Right. Yeah.
You say that, but I also sort of like digging into more data so that I could supplement my review with, like, the M3 CS did not fly off the shelves. That's just it. And
I don't think any of the even the M4 CS didn't fly, so none of those did.
Which, again, you could argue that
GTS either.
Yeah, exactly. The GTS either. But again, you can argue that potentially part of the reason that was the case was because there wasn't a ton of like marketing coverage or hype, to Nico's point, on the CS line. Now that you have like two cars, essentially the M3 and the M4 CS out, they're not unknowns anymore. The CS line is not a mystery. The M2 CS comes out, BMW goes, And
it was quite expensive too. You got to keep that in mind.
That's true. That's true.
The M2 CS. And,
yeah, but see, now people are used to that price, right? But when that car came out in 2018, I do remember the conversations quite a bit. It was considered a very expensive car, and of course, everybody said, well, should I pay more than the M3 competition, which is already a really good car? Do I need to pay more for just a little bit more on paper?
Well, even I said that until I drove it.
With the M2 CS?
Yeah.
And I think that's also the case probably with the M5, but we won't dip into that just yet, maybe.
Yeah, we actually can. I think it's time. I'll let Nico talk about that.
One interesting thing that I want to add is, like, if no one from that watches this actually watches the M3 CS video that we published, just know that it takes half a quart of extra oil over the base in the competition. Like, even that there. Yeah, even that right there was something that I had to dig into and find out. Even like dealer techs that you take your car into BMW to service
didn't know,
right?
Yeah.
Like that's another thing that I like discovered over time is like, yeah, no, it's got an extra oil pump. It's got an extra oil pump to deal with lubrication in high G-force situations like on a track. So therefore the oil pan is bigger. It's got the same oil pan from the M4 GTS, magnesium. It holds more oil. You take it to, get your service done, and the shop tech sees, F80 M3, 6.5 quarts, 6.5 quarts, and you drive away, and it's like low oil, and you're like, what's going on? And again, that ties into having a rollout done properly for a brand new line, essentially, that hasn't existed for decades. Making sure that the public is aware of, like, this now exists. Here are all the cool things that are in addition to the base of the competition. Anyway, that's all I'll say. I had a blast.
I mean, they also, the last point, and you can maybe mention that a little bit, they also changed the name, right? So CS, it meant something else before versus what it means now, right?
Yeah, it used to mean club sport.
Exactly.
It used to
now
mean
it's called competition sport.
And now it's called competition sport. And you'll see that in a lot of M5 CS marketing materials as well. They don't shout it, but it's there if you dig for it. It used to stand for club sport. Now it's competition sport. And again, it makes sense. You have the base, you have the competition, and you have the competition sport.
That's what I did.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So let Nico shine. Tell us about that 0 to 60.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome. I couldn't do that either.
Yeah. I mean, that was, we knew we had to do something special because, and this kind of ties into what we were just talking about with, BMW kind of screwing up the marketing for the M3 CS. I mean, yeah, they didn't have they only had a limited amount of those that didn't let anyone drive them. They only had one M5 CS on the East Coast, and they only have one more on the West Coast. So, like, they don't have a lot. And the one I drove was, it wasn't even a real press car. Like, they're only going to use it for a little bit, and then it's going to auction. Like, it is not even in their actual press fleet. So, the rarity of being able to get that car and actually test it was, so great that we knew, like, we had to do something really special. So and it's special for us. Like, you see, like, guys, like Matt Watson drag races cars, every day, $1 million cars every day. So for us, this was a big deal. And so we rented out, well, not rented out, but, rented some time on this, this runway. And I mean, I only had 3 runs, like I said. I had to go through all the checks that BMW wanted me to go through, normal stuff, tire pressure, engine temperature, had to have the right gas in it, stuff like that. Everything had to be, I had to follow their launch procedure and all of that, and give it cool down in between each run. And the runway only gave me a half hour. By the time launch control, I mean, I don't know if you guys have had any experience with BMW launch control, but it is as finicky and as annoying as everyone says. It does not want to work every time. You do the exact procedure, and it just doesn't do what it's supposed to do, and it can be really frustrating. So it took me probably 10 minutes just to get the first launch to work, like the first launch control to actually work. And then once I got it, I kind of botched it. It spun its tires, and it just didn't cooperate. So then I had to give it a cool down and go for a second run. And on my second run, I was kind of, the runway wasn't even a half mile long. So I knew that right after the quarter mile, I wanted to back off the throttle and slow down slowly. I didn't want to slam on the brakes and, test its very high speed braking capabilities in such a rare car. So I was kind of just eyeballing and you could probably see it in the video. I'm just kind of waiting for the quarter mile time to tick over, and then I'm backing off. And I thought I saw it go in the corner of my eye for the second run. So I backed off the throttle, but it wasn't. It hadn't reached the quarter mile yet. So I had a crappy time, and I was like, damn. So my first 2 runs were botched, and I only had one more, and I had to give it time to cool down. And by that time, like I said, there was literally a little plane, guys going through his pre-flight checks, and I only had a few minutes left of the half hour, and the airport employee who was helping me was like, you have to go right now. Like, he's gonna take off in a few minutes, and that's gonna be it. Once he takes off, planes are gonna start taking off, and you're not gonna have any time to do this anymore. So I pull up, and miraculously, First try, the launch control engages, see a little checkered flag, just, pin the throttle, dump the brake, and hold on, and it worked. And I got a 2.81 second to 60 and a 10.8 in the quarter mile, which really kind of blew my mind a little bit.
Super fast.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean,
that is awesome.
The one, it gets an asterisk though, because I didn't know that the race box even had this capability, because I've never used one before. This was my first time using it. It had the 1 foot rollout setting on, so it accounted for a 1 foot rollout, which is kind of a cheat in your 0 to 60. It means like the first, foot of tire movement, it doesn't count. So it adds like, 10, like, it adds a fraction of a second to your actual 0 to 60 time. Or rather, the 1 foot rollout subtracts a fraction of a second from your 0 to 60 time. And a lot of automakers, use the 1 foot rollout to make their 0 to 60 time better. I mean, it's used at drags, like professional drag strips and stuff, which is where it comes from. And like Car and Driver uses a 1 foot rollout in their 0 to 60 tests. That's why theirs are always faster than everyone else's. So it's not really like a bad practice. It's not like I cheated or anything. It's just that time does come with a little bit of an asterisk, because it did have that 1 foot rollout engage. And I didn't want that, but I didn't honestly know the feature was on. And I didn't realize until after the fact, and I checked the race box when I got home and I was like looking at the settings. But it's still a ridiculously fast time. Although,
even without that, honestly, considering the surface that was on, and considering that Joe, I think Joe Achilles managed to get a little bit better time.
Yes,
it was on Michelin tires, and
I was like, damn, he did. He got 2.75 or something.
And then,
wow, I thought I had the fastest one.
And then a little flag just went off of Nico's head. Is like, and now I have to beat his time.
Yes. Yes.
I think it's also the surface, right? I mean, you mentioned, you told me that the surface wasn't the best.
It wasn't.
So
no, it was pretty actually.
Makes a difference,
cracked.
Especially when you launch in the grip.
It was pretty cracked, and there were it wasn't very even, and and it's not a prepped surface. Like it wasn't like it probably had some little stones in it and stuff like that messed with the tires. It wasn't a perfect. It just wasn't a perfect surface. I'm sure with a perfect surface, you would be able to get a much faster time. So it just goes to show how
it's still a fast car. I mean,
it's ridiculously fast.
It's extremely fast. I mean, no matter how you look at this, and I'm sure there'll be some different times coming out, and some might be better, some might be worse, but it's within that margin that BMW has usually for 0 to 60 times, and that's all it matters really. And they're usually pretty conservative. They never go too aggressive to say it's that fast. They're rather more conservative. So regardless if you lose 1/10 of a second or not, it's an impressive car. And I can tell you, before I let you talk about the driving experience, my experience with the car was really just over a day really. So I didn't have it for a week, but just driving around California and Monterey area on those back roads, which you can't really go too fast, but just accelerating, even coming out of a, exit on the highway so fast. Yeah. It's ridiculous.
And that's honestly where it feels faster, is like when you're at speed.
It just pulls, even I was in 6th gear at some point, and I just floored it and just started pulling like crazy. So I was like, wow. So even the rev range, it's different than on the M5 competition. The one thing that I've noticed, it's definitely more aggressive, and it's maybe not as linear. I think it just wants to pump gas immediately, and just it's different. It's hard to explain, but it's a fantastic car. And aside from that, it's a beautiful car. I've said it the last time too. It's such a beautiful car. You look at that, and it's the perfect design, not controversial. It's the right sedan size. It's got that carbon fiber hood, which is awesome. The wheels, carbon fiber seats, which they annoy me a little bit, but they're still very cool.
Ceramic brakes, factory.
Ceramic brakes.
I will say my car was the wrong color. It was Brands Hatch Gray, which is a
the
cool
frozen
color, but the
Brands
green
Hatch.
is the
Yes.
correct color. I forgot the name of it, but it's the correct color.
Yeah, it's frozen Brands Hatch Gray, and the other one, it's frozen green deep or deep green metallic.
Whatever it is, the green is the correct choice. The yellow headlights are fantastic.
That's awesome.
Like every time you unlock the car and you see yellow headlights, you're like, this is
Those
special.
are cool.
Like, this is something different. This isn't like everyone else's. Like this is nothing like my neighbor's 5 Series. Like this is
This was a mistake. I should not have agreed to listen to you guys talking about the M5 CS.
I also like the steering quite a bit. It's been maybe a couple of years since I drove the M5 competition, but either I don't recall exactly, but it just feels more connected on the M5 CS. I don't know what kind of tuning they've done on it. It's probably just software,
no,
but
not. They did actually do some mechanical tuning.
Oh, they did, really?
So
okay.
It has a little bit more negative camber at the front.
Okay.
And it has, I believe, has stiffer anti-roll bars at the front.
Okay.
So it is mechanically a little bit different, but it is also, I think, a big part of it is actually the steering wheel itself, because the steering wheel is a little bit thinner than on the standard M5. There's like less cushion and less padding in the wheel. And if anyone who's driven modern BMW, especially M cars, know that there's so much padding in the wheel. It's so thick. It's like trying to grab an anaconda. It's absurd, and because of that, you lose so much feel and vibration through the wheel. But because the wheel is thinner, you get just that little bit more like tactile feel through it. Like, and Joe Achilles, actually, oddly enough to bring him up before, but we were talking about this last time, he replaced his steering wheel on his M3 with a thinner one, and he mentioned how much better it feels because like you just get less cushion. There's less insulation. You lose so much of the feel when it's so thick. So you get it's like a combination of things. All the little things add up. Increased negative camber, stiffer anti-roll bars. It has the same shocks from the M8 Grand Coupe with a stiffer spring rate. Then you add the steering wheel and bespoke Pirelli P0 Corsa tires, which are designed specifically for the M5 CS, and you just get steering and front end bite that is noticeably better than the standard car. And honestly, I think it might be the most fun BMW I've ever driven, realistically. The M2 CS might be more playful and, because it's lighter and it's smaller, shorter wheelbase and all that, but there was just something so hilariously brutal and precise about the M5 CS. Like, there's something so big should not be so violent and fun, but it really is, and it's like a magic trick. And there's also the lighter weight, especially over the front. You have the carbon fiber hood, carbon fiber brakes, things like that reduce weight over the front that make it
200 kilos lighter.
Turn in, yeah. It's still a heavy car. It's still about 4,000 pounds
or kilos.
But, it's it's still heavy, but it doesn't feel it. So
it doesn't. Yeah, I agree. It doesn't feel heavy, but I always say that I would pick a more compact, M2 and 1M and all these cars over like larger M cars. But in this case, I might reverse that opinion. The M5 CS just feels like the right car. It just honestly, all the points that you mentioned on top of the looks and space and all of that, and it's just a classy automobile. Classy Beamer.
There's something to be said about having a vehicle the size of an M5 that can do all the things that it can do, and combine such sporty elements in a 4-door, like truly super sedan, right?
Yeah, I mean it is. I mean you're talking. It's like McLaren fast, and but it can seat 4 adults really comfortably, and it has a huge trunk. There's very little in the automotive world that can kind of give you that sort of balance. I mean, you can point to like the Tesla Plaid and things like that, but none of them have the racy feel of the M5 or there's just so much. It's I think the only word I can use to describe it is like violent. It kind of just wants to punch everything in the face, and it's amazing because of it. Like Horatiu, you said you kind of err more towards like sporty, small, little cars, and I do too. I'm the M2 CS on paper is like my perfect car, but the M5 CS, there's something so hilarious about it. Like I don't like when you drive an M2 CS, you're like, wow, this is amazing because it's so precise and it's so balanced and it's it just feels like such a great communicative sports car. But when you drive the M5, it's like this hilarious experience. Like you can't get the grin off your face. It's just, I don't know, there's something about it to me. I guess because it's like it shouldn't exist, that shouldn't be. such a big, heavy car shouldn't be so much fun, but it is. And to me, that just makes it a little bit better than the M2 CS. Just a little bit.
To me, it's not a surprise, honestly, and I'll tell you why. I mean, maybe younger fans of the brand or newer customers might not remember, but the 5 Series and the M5 was always considered the core of the brand. There was all this conversations like in the past that the 5 Series is really the core of the brand. It's the business sedan, and then the M5 was also the core of the M brand and all of it. It was never really the M3 and M4 if you go back in the history of the brand. Of course, recently those cars probably outsell by far the M5, but that was considered their bread and butter back in the day. I mean, they were able to make a super sporty sedan, with the M brand, and they were super proud of it. So to me, it was not a surprise that every generation M5 that came out was really good. The only one that maybe was not as great as, and I would rank probably at the bottom of the pack, it's the F10. The F10 was always a little bit too soft, and I think they learned from that. There was not the right amount of sportiness in that car. It was still a good car and fast. It was just not very special. But I think they learned quite a bit with the F90 and even the M5 competition. It's still a very good car. You can't really go wrong with that.
Right. So, James, you were saying that it's kind of making you want the M5 CS hearing about it. But would you want to give up because your car is, I mean, along with the M2 CS, is sort of this last, this dying breed of genuine driver's cars because it's a rear-wheel drive, and yours is a manual, right?
No, actually, all M3 CSs are DCT.
Your regular M3 was a manual, though, right? Is that why?
The base one before the. Yep.
That's why I was confused. Okay, but still, the M3 CS is kind of pure. It's a rear-wheel drive. It's much lighter. The M5 CS is awesome, but it does have that whiff of this current era of supercars where it's an 8-speed auto. It's not even a dual clutch. It's all-wheel drive. I mean, it's amazing and I love it. But as an M3 CS owner, would you want to give up that rear drive, really much purer experience for it?
That's an excellent question, and one that I've been struggling with since the M5 CS kind of came out. And here's the thing: it's lighter, and it is a DCT, which I like over an automatic gearbox. But not having driven the M5 CS, I'm missing some key data points that I can compare to the M5 CS, to the M3 CS. However, knowing that you have the option of going two-wheel drive in the M5 CS, right?
Well,
you do.
If you've lost all control of your senses, yes.
Sure, but you can. You can.
Yeah.
But there's some magic in knowing that you can say this M car right here, this M5 CS, is the most powerful M car that BMW has ever made. It handles its own with supercars. It could do all the things that you need to do on a day-to-day. If you commute, if you go to Home Depot, if you, need to go to the track because you have an itch you need to scratch. It can do those things. Plus, have a silly 0 to 60 and a silly, quarter mile time. One that, even Dominic Toretto would be like, yeah, well done, kid. I don't know. That's just... It's really tempting for me, and again, because of sort of what I do during my my day job is, I work on Halo, and knowing that the M5 CS, no, don't do that. Knowing that the M5 CS comes in a frozen green with gold accents, you have frozen green with gold, and my license and yellow headlights, and my license plate is M Chief. I don't know. There's just too much. There that again
it's just
serendipity
calling to you.
It's destiny. BMW M, hey, just
Now let me throw you a curveball. So the M3 CS, M5 CS, I don't see the customers overlapping unless you're a car collector. But what I do see an overlap, and I'll be interested for you to drive, will be the M2 CS, because now you're talking similar pricing points.
Yeah,
they're not that far out.
I think get a manual
power output, is it similar? What is it? I think it's somewhere around there, right? The M2
444 for the M2
what's
CS.
the M3 CS? I don't remember.
444
for the
Nico
M2
is saying
CS.
for the M2 CS, and 453 M3 for the M3 CS.
Because it's the M.
So they're right there, right?
They are right there.
They're right there, but
just everyone knows that those numbers are.
I mean, the numbers don't matter. I mean, I think it's more about the price because they're probably around the same price. Let's say,
the M2 CS is like 80. M3 CS used is what you're saying, right?
Yeah, used.
Right,
I mean, comparing used right now because that's the only way that you can find it. So I would say used, low miles. You're probably paying the same thing plus the M2 CS minus, or plus a few thousand.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll be more interested to find out from, if James drives the M2 CS, we'll be like, yeah, this is a more fun car to drive. I would say the M3 CS is more practical, clearly because of the extra doors.
Yeah.
But I think the M2 CS might be a little bit the special one, just because.
Now I feel like you're both out to ruin me in some form or fashion. It's like whatever you currently have. No,
I'm just trying to get you to make one more video, man.
Yeah.
Just buy that M2 CS in 2 years from now.
Videos,
once you're out of production,
right? It'll take me another 2 years to make the video, so that's 4 years from now. Right.
And by that time, nobody cares about M2 CS because they're all electric cars. So thanks.
That's actually, and that's to go back to Nico's question. Would I consider? I mean, the M5 CS, arguably, and we know that this is going to happen eventually, could be very well the last hurrah of an internal combustion engine. That is the most powerful.
M5, yeah.
For the M5, yeah. For the M3, maybe.
No, there is definitely an M3 CS coming next year. M3 CS and M4 CS, or M3 CS and M4 CS, or something like that. So it's not going to be the last. Same thing with the M2. There will be an M2 CS also.
Yeah, but I mean, to be able to say that this M car is the most powerful M car with an internal combustion engine, pure, I don't think
this will be the probably.
This will be the M5 CS will probably
never be a purely internal combustion engine with more power than the CS, the M5 CS.
Even though now, so hold on, because I was going to lead into the next topic, which is the M8 CS, right? So I don't know. I mean, we can jump into that topic right now because I want to talk about it anyway. There is a bunch of spy photos coming out, and we've seen this white car with a different kidney grille and some aero parts on it. And I've always said that I don't think that's not the actual car. They're probably testing something. And there was one test mule of that M8 that had a side vent.
Yeah, had like
if you remember, Nico.
What's that?
There was a side vent in the rear window or the rear side window. They were testing the same car, and he has some sort of an exhaust there or something they were doing different. So I always thought that maybe they're testing the technology, but if they do an M8 CS, if they do, I don't know yet. Honestly, that's one thing that I haven't been able to find out. Is that they're either going to do based on the same M5 CS and use the same engine and maybe give it a little bit more power. They might not even have to because it's plenty, so that might become maybe the fastest. I don't know if they wait maybe a little bit higher, but or they're going down the M8 CS route and maybe they're doing a hybrid like they're doing with the XM, which we're going to talk next also. But so maybe there will be an M8 CS which will join the M5 CS, so that will be a tough choice.
If they do one though, I still think personally the M5 CS would be my choice, only because the back seats. Like, we didn't touch on this yet, but the back seats of the M5 CS are racing seats. Like, they're racing buckets that are sculpted into the rear bulkhead. And it's the coolest thing in the world to sit in what feels like a real racing seat. And then in front of you is the carbon fiber back of the other racing seat in front of you. and to be able to, I mean, I didn't get to sit back there while someone was driving because no one else was allowed to drive it. But, I wish I could have done that because I wish I could have experienced what that thing could feel like from the back seat. And then imagine being able to put 3 friends in the car and just go to the track and just do silly things. Like there's something really special about that package that I don't think an M8 CS could replicate. So as cool as an M8 CS would be, and as it would probably be an amazing car to drive, I still think the M5 CS is that perfect sweet spot of like, this will never happen again. Like something this crazy is just not going to happen again.
Some weird Bavarian Swiss army knife of sorts, right? Yeah.
I mean, they will do something next year. I don't know yet. I mean, I'm sure we'll find out soon enough. There'll be some things like they always do. But they will do something special next year. It's 50th birthday of M. It's such a big deal. I don't see them losing that opportunity. And I'm sure there will be a bunch of special cars on every single model. So maybe not the M2 because they're coming out with the other one. But there will be something special. So maybe there is something that we're not even thinking about or we might not even know. But I'm truly hoping that they're going to show us something so spectacular, so unique. Either in a concept form or a production series, doesn't matter what. They'll be like, wow, this is what the M brand can really do.
Supercar.
I don't think so.
I know. I'm still holding on.
Maybe.
It's called the M5 CS.
Yeah, right.
I mean, they had that Vision M Next, which unfortunately it got canceled, which I find it super surprising considering the i8, what it did for the brand, and it still does as far as marketing and image and all of that. When I saw that Vision M Next, and actually that's the same guy that designed the 2 Series Coupe, which we talked about earlier before we jump on. So super talented designer. So that car was super cool, very cool. They did show it with a plug-in hybrid, which I was like, maybe I should have done all electric. But I'm truly hoping that M will come back one day with something like that. Because that car was a combination in between a modern supercar like the i8, but also with the retro elements from the M1.
It very much looked like a modern M1. It really did.
It was awesome. It was the perfect car. You throw in a 1,000 horsepower electric engine in it, and there would be a lot of people jumping to buy that car.
Absolutely. I mean, fun fact, I had the very difficult job of having to photograph that car live in Pebble Beach.
You poor thing. Oh, not you too. Oh,
it was very difficult. But it had such a buzz around it. I mean, typically, not to dog BMW, but at Pebble Beach, BMW is like the cheapest brand there. You got. I
mean, all the German brands, they can't compete with all the $1 million cars,
But I mean, people were flocking to that thing, and at Pebble Beach, at the Pebble Beach Concourse too, not like at Legends of the Autobahn or something like the Concourse where there's the pre-war Bentleys that are worth more than mansions. People were obsessed with it. It had a real buzz. People really loved it. If BMW made that, people would buy it. I mean, people would buy it. It's very cool.
Yep. Yeah, so hopefully the M brand will do something like that. And I guess since we're talking about the M brand, let's keep on going. We'll have a couple more topics. So today, I actually just wrote an article maybe 2 hours ago. There was a CNBC video. I did see some of the BMW guys being in Spartanburg this week, and I'm like, what are they doing at the factory? Usually when you see the communication guys, some of them going to the factory, something, big is happening there because the factory has their own PR team. But when you see somebody from the HQ going there, something is happening. So I finally got the answer when I saw the CNBC video. So they had the BMW CEO from Germany, Oliver Zipsev. He flew into Spartanburg and did an interview with CNBC, and among the many topics, one of them was the electric one, which I can talk about in a second, was really they announced officially today that they will build a new car in Spartanburg. So that was not surprising because even I was reading some of the social media comments now, actually today, and in the past also, there were a bunch of people working at the factory hinting at the fact that they saw the X8. And I do know that they've been testing that car there in their closed grounds, so not out in the open, since last year, if not before that. So clearly, even though the CEO did not confirm the model, he did say it will be a brand new model that was never seen before, not something based, on a previous car. So clearly, we're talking about it's not even the X8, which I think will be called either X8M or XM. So the BMW brand, it's going even more now towards crossovers, which will definitely upset some fans, especially people from Europe. I had this comment today on the blog, and I tried to respond that, someone said that every time that I see a big, BMW SUV, I think about the Americans. And my reply was that surely, I mean, basically they have to cater to every single market. We love big cars here. In the same way the diesels were not successful here, but they were extremely successful in Europe and did great. It's just the way it is. But it's going to irk some people for sure, that XM. I don't know the design yet. I mean, we speculated through renders based on spy photos, but the car was still heavily covered in camouflage. But that might be their, actually, it's aside from the fact that it's another M SUV, I think it will be their first hybrid M car. So based on what we've heard and some other publications kind of either used our reports or they had their own sources, there will be some sort of a hybrid plug-in available for the car, which will produce a massive amount of power, over 700, maybe even close to 800 if some reports are true. And that will be the first time that we see M's vision for the future. So what do you think about that?
Well, why is it controversial though? That's what I'm curious about. Like, why?
People, as much as I enjoy driving, actually not as much as people love the performance of the X5M and X6M. Let me just put it that way. They're just not happy with the fact that BMW M is building SUVs. It has been like that forever. I mean, and the cars have no fault really. They do what they're supposed to do. They probably do even more than what they should, being so big and everything. But they're super high performance cars, not just SUVs. But for some reason, people associate the M brand, and probably AMG has the same issue. They associate the brand with the E30s of the day, E36, smaller cars, sports cars. But that hasn't been the case in the last, 15, 20 years. I guess things have changed.
Yeah.
And
well, I asked that for
the M brand.
Yeah, I asked that for a reason though, because it was sort of like a loaded question. But I'll let you finish. Please continue.
No, I was just going to say, and that's my only take on it. The M brand it's really successful today as far as the number of units being sold every year, and they're making a lot of money for the company. I've actually heard that recently from someone, and they're really making a lot of money for BMW, which is a smaller volume because the margins on the cars are high. It also allows them to build some of the cars that we just talked about, like, the M2 CS and still the M2s and all of that, and even other special cars that might come out just because they're making money on those SUVs. The market is asking for it. I think they have no choice, same as AMG or Audi, RS brand and all of that. They have to build cars for what the market is asking, You can't just say, well, the same thing with Lamborghini, they build the SUVs and everybody else. You just have to. There is no other choice. And I'm pretty sure that, old school M engineers in Munich, they're not thrilled to work on M SUVs, but they would rather work on, nimble and fun, small cars. But just things are changing. Times are changing. You need to get on.
I mean, you said a lot of things that I was gonna dip into, but BMW is a company that needs to make money and be profitable. And if the market is asking for these sorts of cars, then you'd be a bad business person to not generate this sort of car that people are looking at buying. And I get it. I totally get it. I see both sides. People going like, well, BMW is a sporty car manufacturer. BMW is that, but it is also this, because this is what the market is asking for. And if you just expand your sort of perspective a little bit as a car person, not just as a BMW person, you have brands that, maybe 20 years ago, if you would have asked, do you think Porsche or Lamborghini or Bentley would ever make an SUV? People would laugh in your face, like, no, that's not who they are. Ferrari, exactly. Yeah, these are. It's not. BMW has lost its way because they're making SUVs. It's BMW is seeing that the market is looking for high performance hybrids or SUVs or these crossovers of sorts, and they're filling that gap. Because they're a company that enjoys being successful, and as a person that how dare they do what they need to do to sustain their business model? If that means making a high performance crossover SUV, then that's what that means. You're not forced to purchase that, and I don't think. Right.
Exactly.
It's your money. You do what you want. It's a portfolio, and I think, as a consumer, options are good. Like, if I want to buy a 1 Series, I can do that. It's a great gateway into the brand. But if I want to buy the largest, most decked out 8 series, I can do that as well. It's your money, and having options is good. And on top of all that, if it means that they now have budget to make cool little project cars like the E46 M3 CSL, which I don't think anyone would argue that it is not a gem in the BMW crown. If it means that they have budget to set aside a little project team that can work on something fun like that in limited numbers or what have you, then great.
Right.
Everybody wins. Like, people that have a desire and a thirst for crossover or powerful SUVs, you're welcome.
Right.
So that's the thing, right? So I always try not to sound like a PR for the company, because our job is really to be objective, and we try to be, and we are most of the time. I think we're not fanboys. We love the brand, but at the same time,
according to a lot of our readers, we get paid by BMW. So
yeah, exactly. But I would have I would have a problem with M, for example, if they would only make SUVs, right? I'd be like, okay, now I have no choice. But as you said, you have options, right? It's not like you don't have the option to buy an M2 or an M3, or in the future maybe an M1 again, or a 1M or whatever, right? You have options, and that's kind of what I like, that they're doing. You still have options, and that's why I still defend them when it comes to building those SUVs. I might not be a customer for the X5M, X6M. Yeah. I never was. I like them. I don't think I'll use them because I don't. In my case, I wouldn't be able to use their entire potential, and I would rather have a smaller, fun M car. But that doesn't mean that I have a friend of mine that from Ohio, John, just bought an X5M, and just as a side note, he's a small business owner, and he said he's had his bad habit on buying cars every 6 months. He would go to the dealership and he'd buy like a Porsche, then he would turn it back in, and then everybody would make fun of him, because he just loves to change cars, because he loves cars. And this is the first time in like forever that he hasn't changed his car in more than a year. He bought an X5M competition in Toronto red, and he keeps telling me like every day that this is the best car he's ever had. Even though he sold his previous car was a 911. It was a 911 in Miami blue. I don't know. It was a fantastic car, beautiful and everything else. And he's like, I love the X5M competition. So in his case, it just works, and that shows right there. You having options. It's
just that car people sometimes, not all car people, but there are definitely car people. There's that sort of circle that if it's not what they think it is, then it must be wrong, right? I mean, ain't nobody gonna take your M2 from your driveway, okay? It's just let people have their fun, let people have their options.
I will play devil's advocate for those people though, and it isn't so. At least in the case of the XM or X8 or whatever it's going to be called. That for that car specifically, and I think the frustration. Now, all the points you guys made are valid, and that's why BMW is doing it. But the frustration comes from the fact that the XM is going to be the first standalone M car, the first car that BMW M is going to make without having to use any existing BMW Group products.
Like a bespoke.
Yeah, it's a bespoke M car, and when you hear bespoke M car, you don't think SUV. So it's disappointing that, I remember when M kind of teased that they would be doing something like this. Fans, their minds went all over the place. Would it be something small like an M2? Would it even be mid-engine? Maybe compete with the Porsche Cayman? Would BMW M finally make a 911 fighter? What's BMW going to do? And then it's an SUV. Really? That's the antithesis of BMW M. M was always, it's a motorsport. There's no such thing as a motorsport SUVs. It seems odd that their first standalone product would be an SUV, never mind a hybrid SUV. So it sort of seems like it's the antithesis of what BMW M is supposed to be. And I get the disappointment in that. When it comes to cars like the X5M, you guys are totally right. It's just that's what the market wants. That's what the market's going to get, and BMW's going to print money with it. But with the XM, I do understand the frustration, and I get why BMW is doing it. Again, it's going to sell. People love big, fast SUVs. It's also going to be a hybrid, so it's much easier to make a hybrid out of an SUV because of the space and the packaging. So it just makes more sense that way. There are a lot of real, valid reasons for why it's an SUV, but I definitely understand the frustration. And the frustration, in my opinion, is also valid because fans want something more M-like from the first bespoke M car. And I get that. I think I'm one of them. I think I agree with that.
I gotta say that I don't see the purpose of the XM yet because I have not seen the car. I don't know a lot about the car. So I guess my first question then will be when they finally show the car is, okay, who's the customer for this car? Because that car will be expensive. I think in Europe it's going to get close to 200,000 euros probably, right? In the US, maybe like at least $160,000, if not more. So it will not be a cheap car, probably more than that. I mean, if the X5M is 140, 150, it will be way more than that. So clearly, I would want to find out who's the customer for that. Are we going to go for the Rolls-Royce customer, which is not the same customer, clearly? So that's my first question to them. So I don't see the purpose of that car yet. But then again, I don't have the full information, so it wouldn't be fair for me to speculate on through articles, say, I don't see the point yet, I don't get it. Yes, I would love that. I'm just going to wait for them to show the car and then explain why they did that. Maybe the reason why they did that was they wanted to test the plug-in hybrid platform.
Yeah,
and like you said, that's the best way to test it for the next car. And then also, they might have been in a cycle where everybody was asking for SUVs. I mean, think about it. This car was not conceived yesterday. It's been in works for at least 3, 4, 5 years, if not more. So clearly at that time, there was the whole SUV craziness. The electric was not that, was not the main topic as it is today. So maybe that was their response to the market. I don't know, but I guess we will find out when the car comes out. I will ask them the tough question, like who's the customer? Because at that price point, you'll have to tell me who is the customer you're expecting to get. Like not just new customers, but maybe taking customers from another brand. Like, are you trying to get who? So,
right. Meanwhile, I'm going to be sitting back with popcorn, thinking and wondering, if they nail this and they do a good job in SUV form, what's going to come down the line?
Yeah, right. I mean, performance-wise, clearly they're not. They always deliver when it comes to performance, so there is no doubt about that. Now, the car is going to be bigger than the X7, right? So you can't really expect, a sports car out of that. It will be fast in a straight line, and you'll be, wobbly a little bit. And
you say that, and then the 760M, right, came out, and we're like, well, yeah, I mean, it's a land yacht, it's a boat. Come on, I mean.
The M760 Li, yeah, I mean, I drove it like on the track. It was good, but I mean, it was still a boat. I mean, it was
a
good,
fast
but
boat.
Still a boat. Yeah, exactly. So, I don't know. I mean, it will be an interesting topic for sure. I mean, it looks like it's getting more hype because they're getting close probably to show the car next year. They will show that car for sure next year with a 50th anniversary and all of that. There is no doubt they will not do that. So then probably they're going to show maybe a concept like they always do, and they go with the production in 2023. Right. So we'll find out more. But I'm extremely, extremely curious to see what the process behind that.
I also think what's being lost among readers, and again, I agree with why I understand their frustration, but at the same time, every BMW fan, actually every car fan in general, should be rooting for the XM to succeed and do well, because if it does, it's going to open the door for the brass at BMW to allow the M division to do something else, to make another standalone M car, another bespoke M car. And maybe that's the time when they say, okay, well, now that we have a little more freedom, we're trusted to do this again. Now let's make a mid-engine car, or now let's make a small rear-wheel drive electric car, or let's do something crazy now because we have the trust. Our first standalone car was successful. We can maybe do something a little more adventurous next time.
There's buy-in from the top, right?
Right. So like if they can convince the powers that be to say, you're allowed to do something, a little more fun next time.
You can see also
that's only going to happen if the XM succeeds. So we should, as much as it's annoying that finally after decades of fans asking the M division to make something of their own, and they finally do, and it's an SUV. That's frustrating, but at the same time, let's really hope it works so they can do it something else. Do get a second shot at this.
I think they will be in a transition phase over the next few years, because I was just thinking right now while you were mentioning all the things about hybrids and all of that. There is a reason why they joined the LMDH project. Le Mans, hybrid project, which they will start competing. What did I say? 2022 next year in Daytona. And the reason why they did that is they really want to promote the plug-in hybrid technology, not just across production series car, but also in the motorsport brand and the M brand. So you can see that they already have products in the pipeline. There will be hybrids, but then eventually they will end up having just M products being electric. But I think there will be in a transition phase over the next few years where we're going to see some M cars being hybrids and then eventually all electric. And that's when I think when they go all electric, maybe that's when we'll see a supercar, hypercar. That will be what we expect. But again, maybe since I said it, we're getting close to the end. I said I'm going to tease something, for the future. There was this report recently that they're working on 4 electric cars over the next 2 years or something like that, or last in like the next 12 months. And I think it was the Mini Countryman, which was part of the BMW group, iX1, which is the X1 7 Series, and then I think they said the 5 Series, so i5, i7, or whatever they're going to call that. But I think beyond that, I think we'll see far more, and especially after 2025, and a little bit of my research and a bit of my, inside knowledge, I think we'll see some cars across all the lineup. So if you start with the 1 Series, you'll definitely see some sort of a i1, and then eventually an IM1 maybe, which will be, an M version of that. So think about the 1M that you have, but now you're going with a sporty that. You kind of see the same thing when it comes to the M2. They're already talking, people.
One, do you mean the current one, like a hatchback, like a small hatchback, or do you mean a coupe?
Since we're talking the new platform, the new class, which 2025 comes out, that could mean anything. Okay. I mean, whatever that car it's going to be towards the end of the decade, on the 1 Series, and then we'll see if that's going to be still in a hatch form or it's going to be more in a coupe form. I don't know, but that's still probably 2 generations from now, because I think they're going to have a 1 Series before that. So I don't know exactly. I don't have the details, but that's my assumption and based on what I know a little bit. Right. Same thing with the 2 Series. I don't think this generation of 2 Series will get an electric one, but I think the next generation, which will be again towards the end of the decade and on the new platform, the new class, that's going to be the one that's going to have a 2 Series electric. It makes sense, and I think they will do it. But I think on the new platform, past 2025, the first car that's in line to kind of get the new platform, I think might be the X3. Because I think the X3, it's going to be due for a change around then. So that's the one that we might see, like, first electric X3, not like this one, the iX3, but, brand new idea. And from there, I think a 3 Series electric, it's fair game, so on and so forth. So, but I guess in my case, I'll be very excited to see an entry-level electric car, not expensive, but super fun to drive, because I drove the i4 and it was extremely fun, but it's a bigger car, and I can imagine like a small hatch or a small coupe, all electric, with the, made by the M brand. That would be a lot of fun. So that's a bit of a teaser there, which I think will happen towards the end of the decade. Then again, the industry is changing so rapidly today that I think even they can't really plan ahead that far out. And there are always ideas being thrown around, today. Right. So we'll see. But before I let you end with some of your own thoughts, there was one more thing that I wanted to chat, so I stopped talking. So we're talking about the XM. If that's a controversial car, then how about the 2 Series Active Tourer, right? So we're not getting that car in the U.S. because they'll probably not sell here. But for some reason, people hate on the SUVs. But the 2 Series Active Tourer, it gets a lot of hate maybe from the people like in the U.S. But in Germany, the 2 Series Active Tourer sells really well. And that's the reason why they decided to renew for a second generation. And that brings me to the point where I might have a chance to see that car actually before it's unveiled soon. And I'm excited to see what they did with that, because I saw the spy photos and it looks far better than the previous one. But then it also proves once again that BMW looks at the data, says, oh, okay, the 2 Series Active Tourer might not be the best looking car. It was a minivan, really, but it sold well in Germany. I mean, it clearly sold well enough that they decided to bring it back so they can fund some other fun projects. And again, that's okay with me, because even if I was in Europe, probably never buy a 2 Series Active Tourer. There's so many other choices, but people are buying it, and that's okay with me.
Yeah, so I agree. But I think just to wrap things up, like you said, I think we've all established that we have turned James into a BMW
No,
M5
please
CS
don't.
customer.
Don't. I'm fighting and I'm resisting.
He's got to talk to his wife first now.
Yeah. How's the
James, I don't know if you have the chance to. I mean, I don't know how you're gonna have the chance to drive that car because it's
I don't want to.
it's a
BMW,
tricky.
get on it.
Yeah, it's a tricky
Send James
one.
Yeah.
a M5 CS for a week.
Yeah,
I'm just,
exactly.
by the way, I'm
they
just a
don't
hype
have
man
one
for the
actually.
M5 CS. BMW's hired me. I'm doing tours.
They don't have
around
it
the
in
country.
Seattle. I actually asked them already
Okay.
because I wanted him to kind of try it out. They don't have it there, so it's gonna go. It's gonna go New York, Miami, South Carolina, and then West Coast.
The dream that I wanted to do is to put every CS model on the track. The M2 CS.
Yeah, so we talked about that. Let's not give away all the secrets,
Right.
but I think there is something that we're working on.
We'll see.
So let's not give away that
And stop
idea
stop
yet,
talking
but,
about the M5 CS, Nico. Okay, I don't want it. Not at all.
I'm touring the U.S. I'm just a hype man for the M5 CS. That's all I am.
Every time I see your video pop up, I'm like, nope, not watching it again.
Don't watch
I'm
this.
not watching
Don't
it
watch
again.
it.
Don't watch it. Resist.
I mean, Nico was lucky to have it for a full week,
Yeah.
so I was jealous too because my experience was only a few hundred miles. But
The fact that how rare that is was not lost on me. I was like pinching myself every day. Like, I'm an idiot. Why did they allow me to do this?
No, you should.
was that the most expensive BMW you've had in your driveway?
No, actually, no.
No?
Actually, ironically, the M5 CS is a great deal. It was like 143 grand, which is a lot of money. But I mean, considering what you get, the M8 Grand Coupe I had was more. Yeah,
was it more?
The
Yeah.
M5
Stop
CS
saying big baller for
Yeah.
me, okay? Big baller Nico, okay? That's not even the most expensive BMW.
The only difference is that we have to give the cars
Yeah,
back
I
after
don't
a
really
week.
care
you
a
know.
week. I only get to pretend to be awesome for a week at a time.
Stop it.
I had a Rolls-Royce Ghost actually a few weeks ago. No, it was actually worse than you think as far as the logistics because it would not fit in my garage. There is no way. I measured no way. Even if my neighbor would take his car out, it would still not fit like lengthwise. So that was out of the question. So now I'm like, okay, I'm in Chicago. Where am I gonna park that car?
Right.
So I had to talk to the neighbors, and I said, okay, I'm going to park it right here, kind of blocking the driveway and the garage. You can't really get off for a while, but I'm going to put it here because I feel safe, to leave it here.
I bet
those guys will think, like, how does this guy have a Rolls-Royce?
I bet if you got
I said,
a flat tire on that, it cost you more than $350 as you
Yeah.
paid for the
Yeah,
item.
exactly. So
And Rolls-Royce would be.
so then I had to figure out, overnight parking because I know a journalist had a Rolls-Royce. I don't know if it was in Wisconsin. Was it maybe Wisconsin or somewhere? And someone stole something from the Rolls. I don't remember what it was. So I kind of freaked out, actually, was it actually? I don't remember. But so I had to call a friend that has one of those, it's more of a banquet hall, party room. And I said, I got to bring the car there. I got no choice. I'm going to bring the car. So I was the guy that really drove the Rolls every night there, take an Uber back home. Then the next morning, go back and pick up the car and take it back. So I was like doing this for like 3-4 days. I was like, it's nice to have a Rolls Royce, but the stress,
Yeah.
that it's not
When
your
it's not
car
yours,
and
yeah.
you gotta care for it. I was like, oh.
I know.
But
I know
no,
it sounds like
it was a nice
champagne
car. I'm not
problems,
saying
but-
it was amazing. I felt great driving that car around. It is a fantastic car, and if it's a nice entry level Rolls Royce, if you don't want to go all out on a Cullinan or a
such thing?
Phantom, you can't really go wrong with the Ghost. Honestly.
Yeah, well, there's probably some shade being thrown from the Phantom owners onto the Ghost owners. Like,
Probably, but I drove both, and honestly, if I were to be a Phantom owner, I would get a driver. There is no way I would drive that car. It's not meant to be driven by the owner. Really, the point is to just be relaxed and
well,
have someone
Nico
drive. It's such a big
Nico
car.
and I are waiting for that call for you to make when you need us
Be the driver.
to be the driver. Yeah.
I would be a Rolls-Royce.
I
Phantom
drove the
driver. Hell
Phantom near. I drove the Phantom near Goodwood, and I'm telling you, those roads are so narrow and tight, and going on the wrong side of the road or the right one, depends how you look at it.
It's the wrong side of the road.
And honestly, it was not easy to drive the car there. And then I took a ride with the same car driven by a professional, like a chauffeur, hired by Rolls-Royce. And that guy was flying through those roads. I'm like, how? How? Because I was going I was literally going like 20 miles an hour because I was afraid, how big that car was. But a good driver was just like flying through. So it was a nice car, but I prefer the smaller Rolls. Like the Ghost, it's a really good driving car. You actually enjoy driving the car. And Cullinan too. I love the Cullinan too. But the Phantom, yeah, definitely driver. To open the door for me and everything.
It's like saying I prefer my Sports Illustrated models, not my Victoria's Secret models. That's more my preference.
I know, tough choice.
I'm cracking jokes and like, oh no, it must be tough to have to pick up the Rolls-Royce. But honestly, like thinking about it, like the only like imagery that I have in my mind is seeing Horatio like wake up in the morning, make a cup of coffee, and be like, "Hey, I gotta go pick up the Rolls-Royce," and then just out of like the side, out of shot, you hear like, "Is that the Spirit of Ecstasy? It's the Spirit of Mine." And then like he shows up and like the emblem on the hood is gone because Chicago.
Can't feel it because it hides away.
It does hide, That's the
well.
That's
as soon as you touch
part.
it,
yeah, it goes down.
Works
But
well,
it's just the stress. It's mostly the stress because I know how the press fleet operates for all these companies, and they don't have many of them. They send it from one place to another, and if you scratch a tire or not a wheel, then they have to fix it, and they're not going to say, okay, you have to pay for it. But still, it's an inconvenience to them as far as money and time also, because it's out of service, and some other people, have to drive it. So you're always super, super careful when it comes to press cars and all of
especially
that. Not necessarily because you get in trouble, which you can, of course, if you do crazy things, but mostly because you don't want to inconvenience some other journalists. They're waiting for that.
The funny thing with Rolls too is, here's a little inside baseball for you, for anyone watching or listening still. But the Rolls-Royce press fleet isn't just for journalists, and it's not really a press fleet. A lot of those cars are loaned to celebrities and things like that.
Yep.
So like you might drive it, and then next week it's gonna be at Odell Beckham Jr.'s house where he's gonna drive it. So if it's scratched or beat up, they're not very happy with that. Your average car, like I get press cars from the fleet companies, and they're like, yeah, it's got a little scratch here. Are you okay with that? It's like, yeah, I don't care. I'm just a journalist. I'm just going to drive it. But Rolls, they go to high profile people as well as us grungy journalists. So
yeah, even the M5 CS that I drove, I actually when I picked it up and I went to the Concours on Sunday at the Concours d'Elegance. When I came back, I parked the car literally on 17-mile drive because that's the only spot that you can park. So I just left it there, and then I went Concours, and I went back, picked up the car, went to the hotel, and then coming back, I was looking at the car, and I saw like it looked like a scratch on the frozen paint. And I was like, oh no! I'm like, I knew that wasn't me because there was no way it was me because I just left the car there and then came back and there was nobody. The cars were parked in a line, so there was no parallel parking next to it. So I knew that wasn't from there. So it was somewhere from before. And I took a photo and I sent it to the BMW guys. And I'm like, I don't know if it's a deep scratch or not. I started to rub it down and it came off, but kind of freaked out because I knew that they have to take their car and send it to another journalist to test drive it, and if they're picky about scratches and all of that, they'll be like, well, it's got a scratch and all of that, I can't photograph it and so on and so forth. But it turned out that it wasn't. But it also reminded me how much care you have to take of the frozen paint. As much as I love it, as far as seeing the car and that, and I saw that M4 frozen Portimao, it's beautiful. I don't know if I would ever be able to own one with a frozen color. It will
too much work.
It will drive me nuts, honestly.
Yeah, too much work.
Washington State is pretty wide open. I have good parking. I'd be okay.
So you're saying is
with the
that
frozen
BMW
color?
Can send you an M5 CS, and it's perfectly safe.
In that frozen green with the satin gold wheels and the satin gold brake calipers to pair with everything else. Yeah, no, I mean I could make it work.
So you're saying it'd be perfectly safe there. You could test it for a week.
Perfectly safe. In fact, you know what? If it needs to be stored, like I can act as storage on West Coast, not a problem.
There you go. Just be its babysitter.
And okay, so now we really have to end. But last point, really, problem with the press car, so people really know, is also that sometimes it's not your fault if something happens. And there were cases, for everyone that sometimes it wasn't your fault, and something happens to the car, and you still feel bad about it, even though you were not at fault. You were determined it's not your fault. You still feel bad about it because it's not yours.
Of course.
And you want to take care of it. So that's the extra usually. I mean, if you're a responsible person, you actually worry about these things. And I think most journalists do. Nobody, gets a car and wants to trash it in any way.
I mean,
and
I think if you're listening to this right now or watching us, you're a car person. You completely understand that. Like you
exactly. Yeah. It's like your own.
It's
car.
like your own car, right? And something that's on loan to you, you treat it even. Well, you should treat it even better than your own car, right? Plus, on top of that, you're a car person. Do you?
Yeah.
Oh, you have press cars? I drive.
I mean,
I don't. I get in trouble all the time.
Press
I
cars,
do not drive like
my own car. I drive hard, but a press car, unless I'm doing something like really testing it for a video, I drive it carefully.
I do the same thing. I exactly do the same thing. That's why I haven't got a ticket in a very long time. I just.
I've heard a lot of horror stories. I'm like, you know what? Not worth. I don't have anything to prove.
You can't take an M5 CS and take it like on public roads and test performance because that's not what the car was meant to do anyway on public roads, and you'll be so irresponsible. So if you can find a spot, you're paying for it to rent a track or to rent an airfield or whatever, that's what you do if you want to really produce good content. You're not going to go and do 0 to 60 on back roads.
I'll drive it, like really drive it, but I would never push a press car like 10 tenths ever. Ever.
It's just, yeah, that's one thing, and
and everybody knows you eke the most performance out of a test car when the airport official says you need to go right now before the plane next to you takes off. That's when the heat is on.
Yeah, before the plane hits you in the back, you rear-ended by a Cessna. You need to go.
That might have been faster than the Cessna, for the first
hands down, right?
Yeah, I mean, and a little single-engine prop plane, yes.
Yeah. I can't not see Nico right now just slowly, like slow-mo, grip the steering wheel, like each finger, and then slowly looks to the left and does one head nod to the Cessna pilot, and it's like, let's go.
That would have been really fun.
Speaking of the steering wheel, that leather, the Alcantara on the steering, it's extremely smooth.
It's very nice. Is it real
really
Alcantara?
Nice. That's
like a different.
Is it Alcantara or is it suede?
I think it's like a alternative, like an extra light version of Alcantara.
Is it? It just felt so smooth, so
really
nice.
It's a great steering wheel. So we're really rubbing it in James' face. Sorry.
I have an Alcantara steering wheel.
I think you should go to the dealer and convince them to take you for a ride.
We'll see. Are they available? Did they get all? Did everyone buy them up already? Is the allocation gone? Do you know?
I don't know, honestly.
I know of two people in Washington State that are picking one up.
Oh really? Yeah. They're picking one up.
If you know them, be like, dude.
Are they gonna let you drive it?
One of them is offered. Yeah.
Wow, dude, you gotta take that.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know. Stop it.
No, you know what? It's as crazy as it is. If you really if you're used to driving a performance car, it's easy. Like it's not sketchy. It's not like a car that'll bite you. It's so capable and it's so communicative and confidence inspiring that it's actually one of the easier performance cars I've ever driven. Just because it does exactly what
I believe
you.
I believe you, but I thought I was happy back in the day when I had my E92 335 6-speed, and then my boss was like, "Hey, do you want to drive my E90 Dynan M3?" And I was like, "Sure," and that was not a good idea. And then all of a sudden, my E92 335i that I was completely content with was like, I don't know if I want to do that. It's not.
You don't want to taste that extra.
Yeah, no, not unless it's for the right price. No, I don't. I need to resist.
Fair enough.
All right, guys. So should we wrap it up so we can all?
I don't even know what time it is.
Go on with our night or go to bed.
Yeah.
It was a great chat. It was a little longer than usual, guys. So if you stuck around till the end, I hope you got some good information out of it. Once again, it's going to be on YouTube, also on all the podcast platforms, from Apple to Spotify to Google to, I don't know, there's so many out there, but you'll definitely find it somewhere.
And
as always, if you do subscribe to our videos, that helps us quite a bit. That way we can have James produce and Nico some other amazing videos, so that always helps. Yep. And I guess, Nico, we haven't asked people to send any feedback. If you guys have any topics you want us to talk about, Any guests? We can tease one guest. We're supposed to have him a couple of weeks ago, Bill Oberlin.
Nice.
But
pro driver.
He went on vacation and he's back now. And I think we're going to have him very soon on the podcast. And there will be some interesting conversation with him. Bill is a great guy, amazing driver. He's been with BMW forever. So we can definitely talk about a lot of things.
For sure. All right.
All right. Well, James, always a pleasure. I appreciate taking the time. Anytime you want to come back on, if you have anything cool to talk about, or if you drive any cool cars that we have not, even older ones, feel free to let us know, and you're more than welcome.
I will do.
I think it'll be an interesting series.
Yeah, of course. I mean, this is my second time here, and I always have a blast. I've had a blast last time. I had a blast this time, except for the part where you guys were trying to get me into an M5 CS. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what else we can drive that we can then come back here and talk about, and then figure out how I don't pick it up.
Awesome.
All right, man.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for joining. I appreciate it, and we'll see you soon.
Bye.
All right, bye.